profession, so I'm used to speaking in front of people, but only usually to small groups of students who don't really understand what I'm saying anyway. So, just a few house rules bearing that in mind. If you need to go to the toilet, please put your hand up. Another teacher by profession that I'll be presenting you today is Humble the Poet. When I first encountered Humble the Poet about 2 years ago, it was when my brother stormed into the room and said, Ather, you have to listen to this track. It's by a guy called Humble the Poet, and he's a Punjabi rapper. It's brilliant. My reaction, Punjabis can't rap. And I never listened to the track. A few weeks later, I came across him again, so I thought, I'll give it a chance. And honestly, I've been a fan ever since. Humble the Poet, aka Gummer Singh, is a Toronto-bred MC spoken word artist who in 2008 began releasing independently recorded tracks on YouTube with self-made videos shared through social networking sites. Humble the Poet has since toured North America and has been featured in numerous publications and major hip-hop websites. Unfortunately, hip-hop seems to have this stereotypical image of being all about fast cars, monies, and girls. But for me, hip-hop has always been about lyricism, empowering communities through exploring taboo topics which allow people to think outside the box. And for me, Humble the Poet definitely embodies this, which I'm sure you will all come to experience in this show. So without further ado, can we put our hands together for Humble the Poet?
The truth is rarely heard but never seen, covered up in lines of lies, layered across the globe it seems. The Mama Earth was birthed with borders, tattooed up in ink. Scratch the surface and you'll see their purpose. To divide and conquer, these devils worthless. Man-made divisions designed to dictate destinies. Keep me from my brother, cause within him is the rest of me. Keep me from my mother, oh I love her. From her breast I feed 5 rivers, flow her milk and job in every breath I breathe. But now she's less than weak, segregated, molested, meek, uneducated, unmotivated, undistorted, neglected and bleak. Lacking fertility is humiliating, like watching your mother cremated alive while standing idly by, Punjab's violently dry, but crying to stay alive. Hear her keyless sobs within my heart. I'll pull it out before she dies. Pull a lung to hear her breath. Pull my tongue to hear her blessed voice. And if I had a choice, I'll spill my blood to keep her moist. Ladies and gentlemen, I go by the name of Humble the Poet. Thank you very much for showing up here. Round of applause. This is my very first time in the UK as an adult. Last time I was here was like early 90s and I have very little memories of it. So for me, this is one of my very first performances in front of a large crowd, which is all acoustic. So we're going to do a little bit of, foundation laying before we go ahead with this. So what I am originally is a spoken word poet. I started out doing spoken word poetry. Does anybody know what spoken word poetry is? Specifically, how it got invented? This is why no one's getting free t-shirts, because you guys don't ask. So, back in the days, people used to read poetry, and you read out a poetry book and it's extremely boring. And then the person who wrote it was like, my poetry isn't boring, I don't know why you don't enjoy this. And spoken word poetry kind of came out of that, pretty much saying, the poet needs to deliver their poem the way it's intended to be heard. Because what you read on a piece of paper is not the way a poet means for this stuff to be heard. So spoken word poetry came out of that. So originally in Toronto, there's a very thriving poetry scene, and I kind of started visiting that and started realizing, hey, this is a very successful way to impress some ladies. So I'm going to get involved in it. And I used to get into these competitions, and what I enjoy is a lot of social topics. And during these competitions, I started getting extremely political. And I slowly started getting eliminated earlier and earlier, and then I realized that, it's not only what you say, it's how you say, and a whole bunch of other things. So I kind of made a natural move into music, because it made it a little bit easier to get the message across. And in May of 2008, I came up with a song called Voice for the Voiceless. And that kind of spearheaded this whole thing. I didn't even realize after that I would be doing this. So, thank you very much for coming. This is an extreme, huge honor on my behalf. I'm a Punjabi boy from Toronto who was recording stuff in my bedroom, sticking it on YouTube and sending it out, and a year later I'm here in front of many well-dressed, beautiful people in the UK. So give yourselves a round of applause. Thank you so much. You guys are very well dressed. That's what I realized. I got extremely nervous. I tried to keep up with you guys the whole year ago. I don't know how well I'm doing it. I also want to thank all the organizers of the Golden Temple exhibit for bringing me out here, giving me one of the most, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to say life-changing experiences last night. I got to see this entire exhibition, and I got my own private tour guide, and I got to ask as many questions as I want, and I got to touch things, and it was really cool, and it changed the way I see myself. It changed the way I see Punjab. It changes the way I understand our community as a whole. And I desperately want to go home just so I can shove this message down their throats over there. They need to hear it. And we are extremely fortunate to have seen what we got to see today. So again, that's a round of applause for the organizers of this event. Awesome. So we're going to keep it really simple. I'm going to perform something, and you guys are going to pretend to like it and clap really loud, and I'm going to perform something else, and we're going to keep doing this. Then we do a question and answer part, and I used to be a teacher, I think they mentioned that, so the easiest way to get people participating is in sentences. So again, we've got some teachers out here to encourage you guys to ask some questions. So think about some questions you guys have, nothing too personal, but try your best to answer. Punjab, to me, my relationship with Punjab specifically is one of, it's overdue. I was born in Toronto. I wasn't raised by my grandmother and grandfather. I went to daycare at the age of 2. I had a little mushroom cut. I was speaking English. I never learned Punjabi. I never watched Hindi movies. I never watched Punjabi movies. It was extremely embarrassing, but growing up, I didn't care. I felt, I'm a Canadian. It doesn't matter. I didn't have a relationship with Punjab at all. Last time I visited India was in '94, and as my education in Sikhi grew, my interest in India grew, and my family, I was fortunate enough to travel all throughout India, see the Punch Stuck, see Hemkund Sahib. I got to go to Pakistan, see Nankana Sahib, Punjab Sahib. I got to see the whole tour. I can die happily knowing I got to see, many of the monuments that are extremely important to us. And I'm also very lucky because I get to go to India right after this trip. I get to actually go back to Hemkund Sahib and everything that we've been looking at in the exhibit, I get to see it in real life. So my relationship with Punjab has been a very slow growing one in the later parts of my years, and I was educated on 84, the Punjab water crisis, and all these things that are affecting our communities back home. I was educated in this literally in the past 3 years. Before I started doing this Humble the Poet in 2008, before 2008, I didn't know anything that was going on. Before 2008, I was like, all right, the Golden Temple was this religious monument that, Maharaja Ranjit Singh put gold on it to add some bling. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't take the time to educate myself. So what I want to say to you today is the only thing that I'm going to be preaching today is make your own definition of what's important to you and walk out of here with what's important to you, not what's important to me. I'm not here to tell you what to do. If I'm here to tell you to read, you have to decide what's important to you, what you're going to read. Okay? For you to decide what your relationship is with Punjab, what your relationship is with Sikhi, that's on you. I'm not here to find that for you. I can share you my experiences, but I want you to come out of here and literally do what makes you happy. In life, with the people around you, you have that control. Your happiness is a mindset. I think it's very important that we understand that I'm not coming in here with an agenda outside of entertaining you and helping you guys continue to be empowered as a gallery did to believe what we need to believe. And Punjab for me is like my mother. It's like a mother I never met. And throughout my work, I've always been talking about the women in my life. I have 2 beautiful sisters who in their own rights are OGs, and we call OGs original gangsters. My sisters are OGs, they're very different, and they inspire me. And again, a failing of mine was when I got into this music, when I got into the poetry, I never shared it with them. I never even let them know I did it. And they probably figured it out when my profile was increasing. So they probably heard the name Humble the Poet before they even realized it was their brother. And that's something that I feel bad for because I didn't have that relationship with them. And what I realize now as an adult is I have to go back and figure out why I didn't have that relationship with them. And also how that dictates my relationship with women now. Because what I also realize is, I have been very successful with, finding myself a life partner. And I realized it has to do with my relationship with women, with my own mother, my maternal mother. with my mother Punjab, and with my sisters, who in essence are my mothers as well, because they're mothers. They're mothers of their own, and they take care of me as well. So the next piece I have is this piece called Lover, which is inspired by true stories, unfortunately. She hadn't even seen 11 springs, more beautiful than autumn dreams. They said she'd grow up to be hotter than the summer, but she got chills when she saw him, the younger brother of her mother. He drank that liquid nerve, and he had the nerve to touch her. And then eventually he fucked her, blamed it on her beauty, and said he did it because he loved her. Made her keep a secret. It made his visits more frequent, so that summer never came and the tears they never showed, but inside it always rained. Let's fast forward to 16. She started doing anything just to numb that pain. Because now it's winter every day, colder than December. She remembers his ways, and she'll never feel that spring again. She's my mother, daughter, sister, lover. She's my mother, daughter, sister, other. They always said the third time's a charm. Clutching her stomach, she prays this one's a son. Otherwise, what's the sense of having one? Two daughters, fathers fed up, warned her not to mess this up. Like, that burden is her own. The prospect of a baby girl means she's not welcome home. He makes her go through it alone. A taxi cab to the hospital. She goes through it alone. Sunday night, no family in the room. No one there to witness the miracle of her womb, but to everybody's joy, she has a baby boy. She declares royalty, because she already knew. While Papa slowly learned, raises princesses to queens, and he changed his ways to better things. But those scars still remain, and that pain is like a stain, and she'll never be the same. She's my mother, daughter, sister, lover. She's my mother, daughter, sister, other. Thank you. I started again with this piece called Voice for the Voiceless. I want to perform it a little bit later on. And the reason it came about pretty much, I used to be a high school math teacher. High school math tutor. I would teach little kids during the day. And at night I'd be tutoring for extra money. And it'd be very interesting because you see kids, you know, be helping them out with their homework, and they'd be sharing a lot with you. And I'd be meeting kids who were doing certain drugs. I'd be meeting kids who had certain problems. And they'd be telling me this stuff, and I was trying to figure out a way not to give them an after school speech. I didn't want to sound like every other adult just pounding ideas of the norm into their heads. And I wanted them to see it for themselves. And we realized everybody in this room, your best teachers have been your experiences. You know, and if your mother or father had told you something, the light switch never really turned on until you experienced it yourself. And I think sometimes we forget that when we transcend our messages to people in the future. We kind of shove it down their throats, even though these messages weren't shoved down our throats. I know some of the most inspiring Gorsics I've ever met had epiphanies. They woke up one morning and decided this is what they need to do with their life. But they had a life experience that changed them. And then you go from that, and then you see them preaching. And now they're doing what wasn't done to them in a non-effective means. And I know working with children, we realize what the best way to deliver these messages are. And what I realized is every single individual, just like every child in my classroom, is different. And if they don't understand what I'm saying, the failing is on my part, not on theirs. So what we need to realize is every individual that we come across is a case-by-case basis. We can't have this universal rule, or this universal idea that everybody has to fit into this box. And I think this exhibit did an awesome job of showing you the diversity within our own culture. To realize that, hey, you know, I'm not the first guy to take popular music and talk about social issues and make it rhyme. I'm not the first person to ever do this in our culture, you know. But that disconnect was there, because even though my family, my parents initially didn't understand what I was doing. They thought I was just making black people music, you know. But what we realized is, you know, as I grew up, we're all black, you know. We're all the minorities. We've all been dealing with this, and you know, we share a rich history with Africa, with percussion. You know, when you think of percussion, you're only thinking about Africa, and you're thinking about Punjabi. I'm not going to even say India. We have the tolls, we have the percussion, we have the bump, we have the tabla. And for me, the natural rhythms were there. I just want to continue with it. And I mean, again, you guys are showing me today that what I'm doing is something that, you know, is acceptable, and I really dramatically appreciate that. I work with an artist by the name of Sick Knowledge. He's a Montreal-based, he's a Montreal-based artist. I know he's been on Bobby Friction a few times. Me and him have a lot in common. We share the same first name. Our birthdays are a day apart. We're the exact same age. We both have the same number of sisters. We have a very similar family situation. We have a lot in common. He's also one of the first openly homosexual artists that I've come across. And he's gone through a lot because of that. So for those who may not know Technologist, he's the person that produced Boggy. So if you know me as that guy who sings Go Boggy Boggy, the music was made by Technologist. And it's interesting because that song was supposed to be called Fuck the Homophobes. And he made that song actually for people in England, because he was receiving death threats from people in the UK. And he was going to make this song called Fuck the Homophobes, saying, I'm fed up with this. Let's bring it out. And what he actually did was he tattooed a triangle over his chest. And that's the same tagging that homosexuals were given by Hitler. And to show that he knows he's going to be constantly oppressed. And he made this track called F the Homophobes, and it was on that beat. And then he realized that, this may not be the best thing to do. And then he just literally scrapped the whole project. And when I heard that music, I was like, oh my God, what is this? Can I please have it? And I asked him to rename the whole track. And the beauty of that track, because we're not going to perform it today, because we're not in a musical environment, is that there's no Punjabi instruments in it. We're working really hard to, I apologize. We were working really hard to, again, contribute to the culture, and we made this song that it sounds very dancey. A lot of people think that we sampled some Bollywood stuff and all that, but we didn't. It's Algerian. It's North African. And the purpose of this again is to show, to make an international sound. We're people of the world. When you think of Punjabis now, Punjabis are no longer from Punjab. I was born in Canada. I've been to Punjab twice in my entire life. Many of you may or may not have gone there recently. We are defining what it means to be Punjabi. What you have in the UK, you guys are defining what it means. What I have in Toronto, I'm defining what it means. And I think it's an awesome job that we're doing. So Techno Organic is the next one I want to perform. And I actually want to perform his verses. So I'm doing this because he's here in spirit. He does a lot of the work, I get a lot of the credit. That seems to be our relationship. So I always try my best to pay him tribute. And if you do follow the movement, you do realize we have a huge family back there, and they're all super jealous that I'm here right now. So the next one is called Techno Organic. And it starts off with him saying, I see Africa in all races, getting down to rhythms of odd paces. Couldn't catch his beat if you rep the Star David with guns akimbo, spraying running through Ramallah. Odd like a 13.5-step garba. Poor people is fed up like bounty killer. And that's the sound of my environment. They move to rhythms with bombs dropping in the distance. Children of resistance, dodging mines like a river dance. You and I dance to get in people's pants. They dance to dodge shit. So when you see us standing in the B-boy stance, know that it's techno-organic. And when you forgot your PIN, password, and user ID, you need to know yourself. Hook up like a USB or an IV. And now we're feeding from that YouTube, true dude, all that stuff we hear that's new, is doo-doo. And step into MySpace, get smacked in the Facebook, hey look, they crook, sales down, they shook. You charge a lot, give a little, we'll call them ringtones. Streaming a new revenue, everybody sings along. No need to panic, we're gonna spit it techno-organic. And no need to panic, we're gonna spit it techno-organic. And it sounds so brolic when I'm rapping with Stignology. So brolic is an American slang. I don't have to explain some of these things. Brolic means built. So clearly, my physique is epic. So one of my very good friends said that, you sound like you're 6'7" when you rap. Like my voice is the only thing that gives me size. So I go, no need to panic, we be spitting techno-organic, and it makes so much logic that I'm messing with Stignology. Because we do the tracks like the Tutsi to the Congolese, Janjaweed, the Sudanese, the UN, to the world. Please, take it back to Africa like sincere. Half of us, it goes in one ear and out the other, and it's unclear. Like those bloody diamonds from Sierra Leone. We'll chop a rhyme, we'll chop a bone for a gem, and then we're gone. What we try our best to do is we try our best to realize that the tyranny that our people go through when we hear, so for example, I know today was Turban Day. There were protests outside, I think it was Parliament today regarding the bans of religious headgears. I guess, I'm not assuming it's not just turbans, I guess it's also hijab and a lot of secular nations. What we need to realize is what I'm going through and what our hijabi sisters are going through and what anybody is going through who's being judged on the outside, it's the same thing. You know, and the same way when I'm walking down the street and let's say, for example, somewhere in the southern parts of America, and people seem to say, hey, look, Osama bin Laden, right? To me, that's no different than one of opponents seeing me like, hey, that guy raps about Sikhism. Because we're just looking on the outside. And then when I went to Cuba, you have big smiles. Hey, Osama bin Laden! Because Americans are their friends. And you start realizing the more you travel the world, the contexts of them change. But the reality is, people are judging before they're understanding. And again, going back to this gallery, they're not paying me to plug it. I'm just very happy that I got to be here for this. Especially with the tour, this gallery helped me understand before I judge. So they gave me an opportunity to go through the entire gallery. And I'm looking at these pictures, and that's pretty cool. Alright, that's pretty cool. You know, what's that? I don't know what that was. And then when I got the tour, and I got to hear about the little nuances of the arts, what certain things indicated. There was that one picture of Maharaj and Ranjit Singh inspecting horses. So I just looked at that, oh yeah, Maharaj and Ranjit Singh, missing an eye, big dude, Hari Singh Alwa, alright, cool. And let's move on. And then after, when I started seeing the body languages, there's a character in there, standing like this, for example. And then hearing the history of the treachery within the regime. You know, it made it a lot more, it made these characters a lot more human to me. It made them a lot more relatable to me. And it gave me a sense of pride. That there is a rich history that I've never heard about. Because when I was growing up, all I was told was, you know, after Guru Gobind Singh, things got pretty good, and Maharaj Ranjit Singh ran majority of Punjab and up to Afghanistan, but he drank. So we don't really worry about him. And he had a lot of wives, so we're not really worried about his accomplishments. And then, you know, when we were trying to get, you know, India back from the British, there was this guy named Bhagat Singh, and he was cool too, but then he cut his hair, so we're not going to worry about this guy. And then this is exactly how I was raised, and I'm being brutally honest. This is how I was raised, and I would easily just discredit people. Oh, he does this. Oh, he smokes weed. Oh, he drinks. I would just discredit people. I would judge before I understood. And it took me being in the public eye, me being judged before I was understood, to go back and realize that I do the same things. And I think, again, what this exhibit is also showing is, when I think of Harmandir Sahib, I think of 84. I was 3 years old when it happened. I have pictures with Chache and Mamme who were drinking and partying in December of 2003. Sorry, in December of 1983. Who are now Amritali Gursits now. And I didn't realize that one event had such an impact on them that it changed the way that they decided to continue their lives. What this exhibit let me see is this wasn't the first time that we've gone through this. And this exhibit also helped me realize, why did we go through this? How did a region, people, and I'm going to keep it to a region of people, irrespective of their religious beliefs, their caste, their creed, how a region of people who were flourishing, doing so well, just divided and broke up. And now, you know, Punjab politically is this little corner of what it used to be, a little pimple of India compared to this flourishing, you know, what I have over here, this giant flourishing, huge region which represents the 5 rivers. And how the people who were making their living and their sustenance off these rivers, this river water, how they're losing it out now to large corporations. And how if Punjab had all their water, if they had all the water that they are entitled to legally, it wouldn't be enough for their state. If they had 100% of all the river water that they're supposed to have, according to the Indian Constitution, that wouldn't be enough to sustain their crops. And the reality is they only get 23% of that.